Do you think that Hollywood is just never going to respond and people should follow the path you take, which is to do your own stuff, to write your own scripts, produce your own work? Or is there change that is going to happen eventually?
Hollywood is not in the business of making social adjustments. That's not why they're in business. They're in business to make money. If they can find a way to utilize something that you have to bring to the screen that they can make money off, then they listen. It's not about changing their attitudes for blacks to get more work. If a black comes in, and has something that he can bring to the table, some identity that I brought to the table as an ex-football player, and then turned out to be also a good actor, then certainly they'll utilize you to a certain extent. The idea after you get your foot in the door is to get your foot out of the door and go do your own thing, because they only give you, part of what you want. So you have to bring your own thing to the table. I mean, they're in the business to make money. They don't care about what you say about them. They have 2 or 3 meetings every month. All the heads of the studios have meetings every month. And I guarantee you, what they do is planned. It's planned. Right now, they're into empowering the woman, okay? So that's easy to do because there's no social threat to make a woman a star on television. But if you make a brother a star, then there's a possibility that he may be dating your daughter or your sister or your uncle's daughter, right? So they're not interested in creating that kind of social problems. To bring a woman into television, there's a couple of females now who are black who have television shows, but that's adhering to all this talk about women not getting roles. So, as I said, there's no social pressure.
Right.
Bringing a
Well,
woman.
I think, though, I mean, with someone like, Shonda Rhimes, for instance, having a black woman who actually has the power to write a show, produce a show, I think having, people of color, women in positions of power does make a difference. Would you agree? Do you think part of it is changing who's at the top?
No, that's not good enough. For you to find a way to produce and write and get a film made, you still need a distributor. So now it's up to the distributor to decide how much money and effort he's going to put into the project to release it. You can have the greatest product in the world, but if nobody knows you have it, it's worthless. So this empowering the woman fits into where we are right now. So they take a film like Selma, and they spend a lot of money putting out maybe 3,000, 3,500 prints right away so that it makes it money right away. And then wait and see if anybody else is going to see. They know when they put it out, the black audiences is going to run to it. But does it have legs? Will it have legs? I think that's why it didn't get a lot of recognition beyond the director into the Academy Awards, because it's a film geared to the black audience. And they want to see if it's going to last.
Right.
And if you look at who is leading the march, it's Oprah Winfrey. But Oprah has a plan. Oprah has the power to adhere to the black public and represent blackness, and then go to her TV show and become colorless. She becomes gray in her television show. She doesn't represent blackness on her television show. But in our movies, if you notice every movie that she makes, she is representing blackness. She takes off her makeup. She shows how fat she is, and she wears these unsexy clothes. And that's Oprah being Oprah. But she only does that because she knows she can go back to her show or do her old magazine, and they take 25 pounds off of each hip, and she looks like she's a 92-pounder on the cover of her old magazine.
I think you're being unfair.
It's real.
I think
you
you're
tell
being
me
unfair.
that picture of old magazine is Oprah? Come on.
I think. I mean, do you think that are you saying that someone like Oprah is being inconsistent and sort of pandering to particular audiences? Is that
No, I'm saying Oprah has a plan.
Right.
And her plan is to represent
right?
in the movies.
Right.
Because if you notice, every movie that she's made has been about black suffering, about blacks being treated with injustice. Then she goes and does her television show, which is not representing
Right.
blackness. It's representing Oprah as an entertainer.
Right.
So she has the power to make this transition, to represent and to go back. Being a black actor is a very difficult situation to maintain representation and also maintain what you really want to do.
Right.
I'm lucky because I represent, and at the same time, I'm doing what I want to do.
Right.
So I don't have the power, but I have the will.
Right.
I am a Christian. That is my faith. I'm not asking you to be a Christian. If you want to be one, I can show you how. But it is not required. I have respect for all faiths. All faiths.
I've seen it in the Bible. It clearly states that homosexuality is wrong. And I feel that you are a powerful woman and you have done so much. And if you are going to represent yourself as a Christian and then you're going to go on the show and say that you also support that, it's double standarding.
Well, I have a different view of Christian than you do. Okay? And the God I serve doesn't care whether you're tall or short or whether you were born black or Asian or gay. And so that's just a difference of belief. And I don't expect to change your belief today because just before I came down here, I'm late today because I was in the makeup room arguing with somebody who was telling me how all gay people are going to hell and now I'm going to hell with all the other gay people for doing the show. I take full responsibility for my going to hell or heaven, moving toward the light. She calls it fear and love. There's this wonderful book called Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, which is, anyway, it's a gorilla talking, but anyway, it talks about one of the points it brings out is one of the mistakes that human beings make is believing that there is only one way to live. That's and right. That we don't accept that there are diverse ways of being in the world, that there are millions of ways to be a human being.
Please
and many paths to what you call God. And her path might be something else, and when she gets there, she might call it the light. But her loving and her kindness and her generosity brings her, if it brings her to the same point that it brings you, it doesn't matter whether she called it God along the way or not.
And I guess the danger that could be in that, I mean, it sounds great on the onset, but if you really look at both sides,
there couldn't possibly be just one way. What about Jesus? What about Jesus?
And you say there isn't only one way. There is one way and only one way, and that is through.
There couldn't possibly be with the
Because you
millions of people
say
in the
there
world.
isn't.
There couldn't possibly be.
Because you say, you intellectualize it and say there isn't. If you don't believe that, you're all buying into the
Argument with me.
Thinking, a new form of spirituality that doesn't always align with the teachings of Christianity. So my question is to you, Oprah, how have you reconciled these spiritual teachings with your Christian beliefs?
I've reconciled it because I was able to open my mind about the absolute indescribable hugeness of that which we call God. I took God out of the box because I grew up in the Baptist church, and there were, rules and, belief systems and doctrine. And I happened to be sitting in church in my late 20s, and I was going to this church where you had to get there at, 8 o'clock in the morning, or you couldn't get a seat, and a very charismatic minister, and everybody was just, into the sermon. And this great minister was preaching about how great God was and how omniscient and omnipresent and God is everything. And then he said, and the Lord thy God is a jealous God. And I was, caught up in the rapture of that moment until he said jealous. And something struck me. And I was like, I think about 27 or 28. I was thinking, God is all, God is omnipresent, God is all. And God's also jealous. God is jealous of me. And something about that didn't feel right in my spirit, because I believe that God is love and that God is in all things. And so that's when the search for something more than doctrine started to stir within me. And I love this quote that Eckhart has. This is one of my favorite quotes in chapter 1, where he says, "Man made God in his own image. The eternal, the infinite, and unnameable was reduced to a mental idol that you had to believe in and worship as my God or our."